This will be the 1400 turn of Ligny Quatre Bras. So let's start with recapping what happened since the last turn we saw, 1300. Command points are allocated. We see the Second Corps maneuvering. Von Damme is going to close with his men. The Prussian Second Corps continues to take up its reserve position. And the Third Corps is moving to allow the reinforcements to arrive. Now the French draw second, and they will have an opportunity to charge with these two Lancer regiments. The Dutch Belgians are going to have a real hard time. They fail to form square. They do, however, the Belgians manage to form to stand and will await melee. But here we have the Nassauers, who are also going to fail to form square and retreat. More charging, more attempts to stand, and more fails. This leads to a pursuit and a loss of 2 increments. So that charge ends. Then the rest of the French turn occurs with the melees of the infantry, and the 6 Lancers have pushed back and destroyed guns across the line. So the Allies were hurt pretty badly on that turn. See the advance of the Second Corps and the arrival of the 6th Division, and the breakup of the 2nd Dutch Belgian Division. On Ligny, it was mainly just maneuver, closing for the French, and reinforcement arrival for the Prussians. Start with command point allocation for the 2 armies. So they're allocated to maneuver and defend, and also to allow reinforcements to arrive. The French draw first and will again charge with their cavalry, this time the chasseurs. Now their best targets are these plus grand disorder units. So they'll simply charge them and then pursue and inflict pursuit casualties. 2 in this particular case. So they've charged, pursued, and then tired, and the 120 Nassau retreats. The other regiment will begin their charge, again targeting one of the PGD units. This is going to be a little more severe pursuit. They inflict 5 casualties, and then the Nassauers will retreat into the woods. The rest of the turn plays out with the French movement and assault, the Allied reinforcement arrival, and the French have really beaten up the line there. On the Ligny field, largely Von Damme is trying to close and skirmish. Wellington is moving closer to his lines, and we see more Second Corps movement and taking up their position, as well as Third Corps reinforcement arrivals. The last 2 turns on the Quatre Bras field were pretty dramatic. I shouldn't say that it was unexpected, because I do understand the mechanic and the effect it can have, but maybe I didn't expect it to affect it quite this much. Obviously, command points control who can maneuver, but they also have this extra effect of controlling the initiative, which side gets to move first. So the more command points you have, the more maneuver units, the more chits in your cup, the greater the chance that one side or the other will draw first. So in the 1320 turn, we saw the Allies draw first, and the Anglos here were faced with the classic conundrum of the combined arms. They're an infantry force facing a very strong infantry force, artillery and cavalry. They had no cavalry of their own. So what to do? Defend against the cavalry by forming squares and expose themselves to infantry and artillery fire, or remain in line and hope to withstand the charges. Obviously, they chose to remain in line. They did not withstand those charges. They were swept away pretty handily. But the most interesting thing was, in the 1340 turn, the French drew their chit first. So effectively, they got to move twice before the Allies were able to respond. So that meant all these routed units, all these displaced units, weren't able to reform, they weren't able to rally, and they were just sitting ducks for the next French attack. And that really swept aside almost the entirety of that 2nd Dutch-Belgian Division. Now, in the many times I've played Quatre Bras, I've never had that occur. Usually they are fairly effective at a fighting withdrawal, but this time they were just basically wiped out. I don't know if that was an effect of the single draw cup, gathering up all those chits together. Maybe it gave an unfair advantage to the French. I'm going to continue with the single draw cup for a little while longer to see how it goes. But that was an interesting outcome. It's going to pose a real serious problem for the Allies here. They have very little standing between the French and the crossroads. Luckily, a little bit of reinforcements have arrived in the form of the Dutch-Belgian cavalry and the Kemp's Brigade, Picton's division, but that's a very thin force to hold back this entire French corps. So let's move on to the beginning of the 1400 turn. So we'll start with the command point determination. We'll see the command points growing pretty rapidly here as the game progresses. With the arrival of Picton, we can now have 2 command points on the Quatre Bras field and the same 4 Prussian command points over at Ligny. Now we have a great mass of French command points as reinforcements have arrived. We have 1 for Napoleon, another for Grouchy, Vendôme the 3rd Corps, Girard in the 4th Corps, Imperial Guard. We have Marshal Ney over on the left wing at Quatre Bras, and then Rail with the 2nd Corps. So 7 command points in total for the French to 6 for the Anglo-Allies. Command has been traced here in Quatre Bras field. The number of units are still out of command. A few stragglers for the Saxe-Weimar's brigade are here. So one of the command points is allocated to him. Another one to Kemp's arriving reinforcements. And Van Merlin here rolled for initiative and gained another maneuver unit. And similarly, we have the 2nd Corps and the 6th Division here, both assigned command points, and a light cavalry initiative gave us a 3rd point for the Quatre Bras field. Looking northeast at Ligny, we have 3rd Corps and the 7th Division both given maneuver units, as well as the Prussian 1st Corps, again in sort of a defensive posture, ready to respond. The 4th Corps has been activated, so they have been given a maneuver unit here. One of the divisions is currently out of range of the 4th Corps leader, was given a maneuver unit, and light cavalry tested successfully again, so the light cavalry of the 4th Corps is also going to be able to move. Finally, for the French, Excelmann's dragoons will have the final command point and maneuver unit. Again, the Prussians have that mixed brigade of cavalry there on the tomb, ready to move if need be. The 2nd Corps artillery will be able to finish its move and get into its reserve position behind their infantry. Prussians have 2 administrative maneuver units, holdover from the previous turns, so they'll get to maneuver those guys for free. And their final maneuver unit is this light cavalry brigade, or mixed cavalry brigade really. It's going to basically try to take up some screening positions, which is a lot of maneuver units. The French end up with 9, and the Anglo-Prussians end up with 7 altogether. Even with my new fatter cup, I still can't fit them all. But that's a whole lot of maneuver units, and a slight advantage to the French with all of those chits in the cup, that they may gain initiative. I always forget to touch on this. We play to win the game. So how do we win this game, or games? Here at Quatre Bras, of course, it's control of the crossroads, and this east-west road. And there are some other victory conditions for inflicting casualties, putting the opposing sides on morale levels. But being able to control that road in that crossroads is key, and the French can earn a decisive victory by being able to control that road and exit forces towards the Ligny battlefield. Here at Ligny, it's slightly different. Assuming the Prussians don't have an opportunity to kill Napoleon, they are going to win by controlling the population centers here, and they can win decisively by controlling this town. So they're able to effectively eject the French army from the field. They will have an overwhelming victory. Kill Napoleon, they win decisively. For the French, it's similar. They can win by controlling these population areas in the town, but they can win a bigger victory by controlling the road and pushing the Prussian army essentially to the east, away from the Anglo-Allied army. So if the French can clear this whole map area here of Prussians, clear them away from the road, they can win, an overwhelming or decisive victory. So it kind of leaves us with the question of, why in the heck do we want to get caught up in fighting in these villages if we can win decisively by capturing this road back there? So I think that's going to drive, since the French really are on the offensive in this game, the strategy from here on out. The French probably are not going to get themselves caught up in the hornet's nest of the Ligny town. They're going to try to push their way across this stream, right in the teeth of that artillery, and hopefully dislodge these troops just by virtue of the attacking in the places they aren't. If they can push forward and catch them, the First Corps here, in a vice, they might be able to reach this road and stretch for an overwhelming victory. That's hard, because we've got the entire Second Corps there. This is not an easy, but I think I think it's better than just slogging it out in Ligny and trying to go for a minor victory. Anyway, that's going to be our plan. See how it plays out. Let's get to it and draw the first chit. So it's artillery. We don't have any grand batteries, but we do have the Prussian howitzer battery, so let's fire that. So there's the howitzer. Well, he's facing forward this way, so he has, sorry about that, he has shot all the way down there. Hit the French off in the distance. I think we can basically get a shot right here. That's within his range. So we'll place the howitzer chit. Roll the dice first to see if we scatter or not. So we do have to scatter. We rolled a 2, so that'll move the chit that way. Now we'll go ahead and roll the dice to fire against that hex. We're not going to have very good luck with it. Nope, we did not. Roll the 14, so that's a miss. No effect. That's actually our third fire for the howitzer, so that'll be our third use of ammunition for them. I think that'll do it for our artillery action chit. Let's draw our next chit. The British. So that is the Allied initiative being exercised. They definitely need that. We'll just go ahead and start moving the Allied forces. The Prussian maneuvers are pretty uneventful, just getting guys into position. The 2nd Corps artillery joined up. Now the mass of the 2nd Corps is in position in their little reserve spot there. The 3rd Corps 11th Brigade completed their administrative march here. And the 12th Brigade almost completed theirs as well. They are just a little strung out there. They probably have one more turn for administrative march. And then that 2nd Cavalry Brigade is basically moving to put themselves alongside the 1st, kind of screening as the infantry is massing up in this direction. Here, Quatre Bras and Kemp's Brigade line up along the road. Don't really want them quite spread out that much, but with the movement points available, that's how we were able to get them there. One point was spent on Saxe-Weimar, and he has basically nothing to work with here. So he shifted a couple of battalions in the woods, tried to be a bit of an impediment, and he himself ran back to try to rally this unit here. And finally, the Belgian Cavalry Brigade moved from this area here down to here, put themselves on the flank, just to possibly slow up and force the French to take a more defensive posture. Don't want to expose themselves needlessly to a cavalry charge. Let's hit the next hit here. There we go with the French. So now effectively both sides will have their chance to maneuver, and we'll only have those action shifts remaining. Here at Ligny, the French are just moving their cavalry to kind of take up a screen there on the east side. Having a hard time getting used to this keep units in command thing, so I'm making some mistakes as I go. Definitely made a mistake here with the 4th Corps. They started to move up, got the 13th Division there, as well as the cavalry. And I split the cavalry on both sides of the tomb there, and so now half of them are out of command. And I also left my ammunition wagon too far away to supply my helpless artillery there, so that was an error. I've also failed to keep 13th Division in range of the general, so even though the 4th Corps is activated, you won't be able to get everybody moving. So pretty poor movement there. We're just feeling our way through this right now. For Vendôme, we moved the 7th Division to try to start to assault some of these obscured, probably skirmish markers. They ran on top of their own skirmishers, who then displaced, since you can't stack two different formations and skirmishers can displace. Did something very similar here with the 8th Division. So these guys have stepped on top of their skirmishers who were in front of them, and now those skirmishers would just displace one hex back. Same for these guys. So they'll maintain their order, or their formation I should say. Oops, and just displace. So now these 8th Division units will be able to assault those obscured units. Here in the middle of the 11th Division, I'm just going to put those skirmishers in front and kind of put a little bit of fire on them, maybe just attack on these two areas here. Now, members of Napoleon's staff are just sort of placed behind the lines here, and their only purpose is to catch any units that disorder or plusquam disorder and help to rally them. So they're just sort of back here, rounding up, shirkers and derelicts. Have no other real purpose for them at this point, but I'm using them for that instead of the division and corps leaders because I want to preserve the command structure. 2nd Cavalry pivoted to, counter the Dutch Belgian cavalry there. That was the desired effect, and it was really the only move to make. I fouled up some of the command structures, but I gave myself a break and got them into place. This is the 6th Division here, and they are just moving up on the left. Now, they're way too far away from the 2nd Corps commander, so they'll end up costing a command point to move them every chance they get or need. Now, the 9th Division crossed the stream, wasn't quite ready to run up against the British there, so they're just going to try to hit the remnants of this Dutch Belgian division there. Still have this area surrounded here, a couple of battalions. Much of this division will remain in command next turn, so that was a goal. Similarly, the 9th Division across the stream is going to try to hit some of the Dutch Belgians here, stir them up, push them back maybe. I can see I actually forgot to move the general. He is right here. If I decide to keep that and not allow myself to rectify that mistake, that'll mean that the divisions will have to be moved individually. No one will be in range of the corps commander, so they won't be able to move as a corps. But that's one of those interesting things about the time-limited movements as well as the command system. Thinking about tactics, but also command at the same time can get a little distracting. So we have some contact going on now. We can continue with the French maneuver. This is the defensive fire phase. So we'll have a lot of these Jaegers under these counters. They can just fire on these French battalions that are coming at them hard, either across the clearing here or through the cultivated areas. So largely it'll just be a bunch of dice rolls and trying to figure out what happens, if there are any results. Well, as luck would have it, our first dice roll actually yielded a hit. So these Jaegers fired on this battalion, rolled a nice high number, so they inflicted a casualty. We'll throw a casualty marker. No morale check for the French here. They check on even. I think it's even. The other rolls were all no effect, but the last shot right here fired those Jaegers at this battalion, and they did inflict another casualty. We'll just throw one more unit, or one more casualty marker there. Again, no morale check. I think that'll conclude defensive fire here at Ligny. We've had some contact here at Quatre Bras for a while, especially around the farms, and been resolving those attacks, very ineffective. But now we have positions here, here, and here. So we're just going to go ahead and start rolling dice and see if we can get some hits here for the Allies. Ineffective so far, but this unit in column, out of command but can still fire, fired on these skirmishers and threw a big number at them and caused what will be their second increment loss. Now the casualty checks for the two fields are a little different. So for the French at Quatre Bras, it's odd increment losses starting with the third, whereas at Ligny it's even increment losses starting with the second. So no morale check yet on that guy. Our last couple of dice were ineffective, so that should conclude defensive fire. Now we can turn around and have the French fire back. French were able to put a large amount of fire right here under those Nassauers, causing a second increment loss. But they check on odd increment losses, so no morale check. Similar fires surrounding that battalion rolled a very high number, yielding 2 increment losses. So that's going to be 3rd and 4th losses, which will mean 1 more morale check. Rolled a 53 for the morale dice, so that's going to be good enough to pass. Now they've lost 4 strength points. That's a lot. Combination of artillery and infantry firing on that farm yielded an increment loss. I believe that's the 2nd for these guys. Yes, the Dutch militia's in there, also with the division leader. He's going to be hard-pressed to get out of there, but no morale check yet on the 2nd loss. And the remaining dice yielded no more hits here at Quatre Bras. And here at Ligny we have similar return fires going on across the line everywhere they're in contact. So I'll throw a bunch of dice, see if anybody gets any results. Throw a very high number here, inflicting some casualties on these Jaegers. That'll leave them with 1 increment remaining. Now they check morale on odd losses. That's their loss, and their first loss rather, and they failed. So they are going to disorder and retreat. And if I can find a disorder marker, I will mark them. Now comes the assault and melee phase, but I'm kind of missing something very important, and that is my assault markers. I fouled up again. In the 5th edition, basically you decide on assault during movement. So you are to move and mark your units during the movement phase, but I just forgot. So if I had done it correctly, I would have put my assault markers on these units. I'm going to give myself a pass. Just chalk it up to ignorance, not, malice. And these would have been the markers I would have placed. Oops, not a charge, sorry. They look a lot the same. A assault. So those would be the assaults here at Ligny that I was planning on. Actually, there was one more here. Let's see, 1. Oh yeah, 2 more actually. Each of these was going to assault into those hexes. So I'm just going to resolve our assault as if I know what I'm doing and didn't make a stupid mistake. Now here, I think I'm going to retreat these Jaegers before combat. I don't want to expose them to a beatdown in front of formed infantry. But this one I am not, because if a unit retreats before combat, the assaulting unit is then able to choose a new target and attack them, and the target is not able to fire defensively. I don't want to expose that artillery to a free assault without any defensive fire. So I'm going to take my lumps and see how it goes. Well, that was definitely a lump. Pre-melee morale checks were passed, and we went to melee. They're going to be halved for being in skirmish order. The French have an increment loss, but still we're going to manage a 5-1 attack, and they rolled a 64, which is a defender surrender. So we lost that entire company. A little rough. So the French will then advance. On the plus side for the Prussians, they've got a battalion and a battery of artillery waiting to smash the French in their next opportunity. I don't think there's anything such thing as advancing into hexes that were vacated during fire combat, so those 2 guys are going to stay right where they are. And that'll lead us down to this quadrant here. I am going to have these skirmishers retreat before combat. I'm safe in doing that because I have big battalions right behind them. And I'm not too worried about them actually getting hurt. They're just too large, and that would be a poor assault. So as both the French and the Prussian player, I'm going to decide simultaneously not to continue those attacks, and the same is going to go here. We'll retreat those. I can't remember if these are... Yeah, they would be revealed because they were assaulted. So I'm going to move that guy here. And I think that'll be the end of my melee phase. I can see I missed a fire attack here. I didn't notice it when I was before. This battalion is actually in contact with that one, so they probably fired at each other and had no effect. That's what I'll play. So that'll be the conclusion of the assault for the French chit. And the mistakes continue. Of course, I forgot Quatre Bras. Did the same thing here. Forgot to mark the units during their movement for their assaults, but I'm going to go ahead and pretend that I did and resolve them here. So we have this unit is going to strike the Nassars, much depleted Nassars in the flank. And this one here will be hitting another Nassau, but that'll be in the front. So let's roll some dice, pre-melee morale checks here. Passed pre-melee morale checks here. Proceeded to melee, 2-to-1 odds, and achieved a defender disorder. So the Nassars will disorder and retreat, losing an increment. I'll go a total of 5 increment losses. I don't think command status and morale order have anything to do with each other, so I think they'll remain out of command. 1, 2, 3 hexes. Movement points. And these guys will advance into the hex. We have this last assault here. Defenders failed their pre-melee morale check, so they will disorder and retreat. I know, a little casual, but both those units were assaulting, so they now have to advance into that hex. They're in different formations, so they'll have to check morale and then displace somebody. Well, maybe I have that wrong. That is the consolidation rule I was thinking of. And that says specifically after a successful melee. So maybe I can just advance 1, since it was not a melee, it was a pre-melee morale check. I'll just advance 1 and leave it at that. Now, I'm sure I'm done with melees for the French. Now to conclude the French chit draw, they had no one in poor order, so nothing to rally or rout. They did have these 2 cavalry units that retired, and they recovered some readiness since they did not move all of their, more than half their movement points or fight. So that should definitely conclude the French chit. We can move on to the next one. It looks like the cup is full, but actually all those have been used. All we really have left are those 3 action chits. We'll just draw. There we got a leader chit, now we can move leaders. Here, Quatre Bras, we didn't do too much. We moved the 2nd Corps leader here, so he will have the 6th and 9th divisions in command. Just didn't quite get the cavalry. So in order to move everybody in that force, they'd need 3 command points next turn. And for the Allies, where they just moved the Prince of Orange and what was it, maybe Bylant here, to try to rally some forces next turn. Looking east towards Ligny, we can see the Duke of Wellington moving his way slowly towards his army. So he should be here. Well, he might be in some trouble. He's going to have to veer to the north, I think, but should be here in 2 turns. Now, Ligny, I'm going to do what I said I wouldn't do. Just the Imperial Guard is stuck in this little area here, kind of behind the stream. And I just don't want them there. I'd like to get the young guard out here, and potentially the rest of the guard. I'm going to follow my crazy plan. It's going to want to go this way anyway. So I move their leaders out here into this little area, and I'll just drag them across next turn. Ugly, but that's how it is. And similarly for the 4th Reserve Cavalry, I'm just going to put them over here, draw those cavalry over there very slowly, and reposition them forces that way. Draw the next chit. Keep drawing until we get an action chit. It seems silly, but this is the way the rule reads. Here we got reinforcements. So for reinforcements, the British are going to get Pax Brigade entering on Quatre Bras. The Prussians will get the 3rd Corps 10th Brigade coming in on the eastern side. And the French get to call the Count, the 6th Corps. And they do that by rolling dice. And they roll the 64. And per the arrival schedule, that means they will arrive at 9 p.m., which basically means not worth the bother, since the game ends at 10:20. So no real reinforcements coming for the French anytime soon. Well, except for the 1st Corps, we'll see how that plays out. Reinforcements are stacking up over here for the Prussians. That's actually the artillery that has arrived, mostly. They were unable to arrive at their designated time last turn. And there's only 1 battalion of the 10th Brigade that's arrived so far. So they'll continue next turn. And there are the 4 battalions of Pax Brigade marching towards the crossroad. I don't know that I necessarily want them going this direction. I kind of like to angle them off to the east, but marching along trails is too slow. It's 2/3 of a movement point, which I fouled up earlier. For some reason, on Quatre Bras, 2/3 of a movement point. The roads must be just terrible over here because barely a stone's throw away on Ligny, they're a half. But we'll play the game as it's printed. And the last useful chit will be regroup. So we'll get anybody out of command back towards their command. With the completion of the slight movements of units to regroup back toward their leader, we'll see that bring to a conclusion this turn. This was the top of the hour, so it was a morale level turn, but none of the formations have incurred enough losses or routes to change their morale levels. We saw a little bit of activity on both fields. I think things are going to start heating up here for sure. Here on the east side of Ligny, we continue to see the 3rd Corps arrive. Don't know what they're going to get up to, but they're gaining strength. The French at this point only have this cavalry under the Marshal Grouchy to screen them. The French have been moving the 4th Infantry Corps towards this gap between Ligny and the towns over there. The 4th Corps is activated, so they will be able to maneuver as a corps. And so far as there are divisions in range of Gerard, he has 2 of them so far. Now the Guard is sitting there, and there's a crazy idea to kedge them over to this area, so we'll see that play out next turn. The first attacks started here. The French were able to inflict some casualties, drive in some skirmishers, but they haven't reached the main line yet, so we'll probably see that next turn. They have 1 battalion of the 7th Division pushed pretty far out there. That could cost them. He's pretty exposed. He could take a heavy hit in the next turn. Moving up towards Quatre Bras, we can see the Duke of Wellington moving up towards his lines. Probably doesn't have them in sight yet, plenty of little villages in between, but he can certainly hear the gunnery. After 2 rapid turns, the French were actually a little slower this turn. I mean, they moved the 6th Division in force here on the left side of the road, but they didn't really make too much more headway. The arrival of the Dutch Belgian cavalry kind of slowed up the French cavalry a little. They were able to make some attacks, push back a few battalions, but with the arrival of Kemp's brigade there, they're probably going to be making a little slower progress. Now the battle is going to be joined. So the French will push hard while the Allies try to gain their strength. Just a quick note on this position right here. The walled farm. This place, however it's properly pronounced, is a speed bump. Unfortunately, the leader is stuck there. I believe that is the general of the division. He can't get away. But another odd thing is that this ammunition wagon is stuck in zones of influence as well. Now for the French, they haven't wanted to attack it because if it is destroyed, it creates a wreck and it'll be right in the middle of the road, and that would block the French advance. So this thing is just sitting here. More or less, the French are waiting for this farm to fall before they try to dislodge that guy right there. So we look forward to the next couple of turns. We'll capture those in review and play again the next turn at, I guess that would be 3 p.m., 1500.